Hi there folks, welcome to another one of my podcasts. On this one, I'm going to be entitling this one Ketogenics and Intermittent Fasting, part 2. So if you find yourself struggling with any sort of stomach problems except for the gallbladder, or any sort of injury or illness, flu, fever, or you're just feeling off sort of yourself in terms of physical health, then maybe you'd want to try changing from eating carbs and sugar and basically replacing that with fats and a little bit more protein. Then maybe you could even go paleo and go halfway, where you could just cut down maybe half the amount of carbs you have and half the amount of sugars, and see if that helps. And then if you really want to get better properly, you could go the full hog and go the full ketogenic diet, which is like 5% carbs and less than 5% sugars. So yeah, two of the most hardest things to give up really are carbs and sugars. They go back a long way in our diets from our ancestors, and it's not an easy thing to actually go keto. So yeah, this video is really about sort of maybe thinking about going paleo before you go keto, and use your own body to let you know how it's going. And just go from it like that. But you're essentially going to be eating a lot of healthy food still. So, you know, it really does come to a stage in your life sometimes where you think you've got to think about making a sacrifice and being prepared to try something else to improve your health. At the end of the day, our bodies are mainly made out of fats and proteins. Even on a thin person, 78% of that person is fats due to their internal organs, and there being a lot of fat in cells anyway throughout the whole body. Proteins really only in the muscular parts of the human body. Now, you are what you eat only applies to a very small percentage of the world's population at the moment. Basically, most of the Eskimos and a handful of doctors and lay practitioners are on the keto diet. And we are not essentially made of carbs. We do produce sugars, glucose, etc., but we're not actually those things, and the body actually makes them anyway. So is it a good idea to spike your system by putting extra sugars in your diet? Now, there have been mixed stats about Eskimo diets, where they said they had a high level of heart disease and low life expectancy. But I reckon one of the reasons behind that would have been the use of their own fermented type of alcohol. And yeah, if you add sugars or carbs to a diet that high in fat and meat, often the results are terrible. There was actually a TV study done by two twin doctors who went up to the north of Siberia. You can see that on YouTube. And they did a study on the Eskimos living there, and most of them were just eating the natural products of the sea and the land, but a few were actually eating Western processed foods. And when they did tests on them, they were only half as healthy as the ones that were eating the natural foods. So that's something to be aware of. They basically had a lot of blubber and then a bit of meat, but the blubber they ate most of. So it makes sense, you know, we are what we eat. Now, studying ketogenics and being on the diet for some weeks now has really changed my outlook on what constitutes as an animal and what constitutes as human food. For example, I've eaten sweet potatoes for many years, but looking back on it, it turns out they were one of the most poisonous foods for me. They've got high levels of carbs, high levels of sugars, and of course they're actually a member of the very toxic belladonna family as well, whose seeds from that flower can be devastatingly poisonous. So with the paleo diet, you can wean yourself off the carbs and sugars and replace those old residual habits of eating with a new and improved dietary conditioning. Basically, you'll tend often not to snack, and when you do eat, it's a discrete meal that you have now and again, and then you can go intermittent fasting. If you've done it a few days in a row, you can go without a day or two quite happily without eating, on the right diet, so you don't need to snack and waste your time in the kitchen all the time. So when it comes to keto, if you have a large bone structure and a wider build, then perhaps only you'd take like a 70% intake of fat. But if you're thinner, then maybe an 80% would actually help you. But you do have options and you do have choice when you're looking to go straight into the keto. Like I say on this vidcast, going paleo, like a halfway sort of journey to keto, just to get yourself used to it, is a good way. Now, regarding sports performance, the body does actually produce glucose and glycogen production for the brain and the muscles. However, the amount of glucose, I believe, have been hyped up too much of what we need. I think there is a tiny amount in meats and in fish, and I think once we actually get used to living like that after a few months on the paleo keto diet, our body and our muscles adjust as well. So, you know, that's something to consider about, and especially with sweets and breads and stuff, there is a lot of pleasure involved in eating it. But really, I've realised with keto, when I eat the food that I eat on the keto diet, it really does satiate an inner hunger that I had before. That's why I was snacking all the time. Keto gets right in there, and it really fills me up, and I really enjoy what I can make off the keto diet. So I don't feel like I'm limited, even though I have made sacrifices. However, with things like this, I take it day by day. If I do feel really ill or worse from it, then I will stop it. However, what I have noticed is that roughly 5% of sugar is 0.5% of sugar, as I said before, in meats and other things. So I think that's more than enough on a keto diet to actually get used to it and start improving. Be patient with the keto diet you're on. It does take some months to reach all your personal goals in life. But you know, if you really are what you eat, then at the end of the day, you will get your shit together. And that is the thing about keto. Once you find a momentum in living in that way, you will actually find your perfect body weight. Some might lose weight faster or sooner than others, but at the end of the day, everyone catches up after like some months to over a year. And once your body gets used to it, you can actually start improving your overall physical health and performance. But I personally think that our bodies were never meant to have the amount of sugars that we have, or the amount of carbs, you know. So yeah, I would love to hear your comments and thoughts about keto. So yeah, thanks very much for your time.